This is the backside of the Module 4 practice test. So number 8 says, one equation in a system of linear equations is y equals negative 3x minus 5. Write a second equation in slope-intercept form so that the system has no solution. So in order to have no solution, these lines have to be parallel, which means they have the same slope. So as long as your new line has a slope of negative 3, because that's the same, you can have any y-intercept, and that'll be a parallel line making no solution. For a second equation in slope-intercept form so that the system has one solution, as long as they have different slopes, the lines are going to intersect at one point. So your line just needs to have a different slope, and any number for the y-intercept is fine. For number 9, we need to define two variables, create a system of equations, solve the system algebraically, and write your answer in a complete sentence. So number 9 says a chemist has to mix a solution containing 25% acid with a solution containing 50% acid to make 1,000 liters of a solution of 34% acid. How many liters of each solution should the chemist use to make his final solution? So when they ask a question, how many liters, that should be our variables. So I'm going to make x the number of liters of the 25%, and y can be the number of liters of the 50% solution. That way when I make my equation, I have to use the other numbers they give me. So it needs to make a total of 1,000 liters. So when I add up the number of liters of the 25% and the number of liters of the 50%, I'm going to get a total of 1,000 liters. The other equation deals with the percentage of acid. So if there's 34% acid in 1,000 liters, that comes from 25% of the liters of the 25% solution, and then 50% of the liters of the 50% solution are acid, and you're going to end up with 34% of the 1,000 liters being acid. So when we do these mixture problems, we need to multiply. We do percentage times amount, percentage times amount, percentage times amount. So I'm going to go ahead and move this over 3 spaces because we're multiplying by 1,000. So really we have 0.25x plus 0.50y equals 340. Now I have my 2 equations to work with, and I need to solve these by either substitution or elimination. I'm going to do substitution because one of these variables is easy to isolate. I'm going to look at this first equation. I'm going to isolate x. So I'll take this equation over here, x plus y equals 1,000. I'll subtract y from both sides to isolate the x. I now have x alone equals negative y plus 1,000. I have a variable alone now isolated, and I'm going to use that to substitute into my other equation over here as x. So I will rewrite that one, 0.25x plus 0.50y equals 340. And x is all of this. That's going to substitute in as x. So 0.25 times negative y plus 1,000 plus 0.50y equals 340. I'm going to distribute. So I get negative 0.25y. And then 0.25 times 1,000, again I move it over 3 spots because there's 3 zeros. And I get plus 250 plus 0.50y equals 340. I'm going to combine some like terms. Negative 0.25y plus 0.50y, that's positive 0.25y, plus 250 equals 340. I need to subtract 250 from both sides to get the y alone. And I'm left with 0.25y equals 340 minus 250. I get 90. And I'm going to divide out 0.25 from both sides. So y equals 90 divided by 0.25, which is 360. And so since I labeled my variables, I know that y means 360 liters of the 50% solution. I will write that in my sentence at the end. Now that I know that y is 360, I can substitute that in this equation and find x. X is negative y, which is 360, plus 1,000. So x is 640. And x means the number of liters of the 25% solution. So now when I write my answer as a complete sentence, I would say there are 640 liters of the 25% solution and 360 liters of the 50% solution. For number 10, a collection of dimes and quarters totals 860. There are 50 coins in all. How many dimes and quarters are there in the collection? So we're talking about dimes and quarters, and the question is how many of each? So that's going to be my variables. D is the number of dimes, and Q can be the number of quarters. If there are 50 coins in all, the number of dimes plus the number of quarters is going to be 50. And this collection totals $8.60. So my other equation is I get 10 cents for every dime and 25 cents for every quarter. And that's going to give me a total of $8.60 when I add it all up. I'm going to do the trick where I multiply everything by 100 to move the decimal over 2 spots for each one. So my decimals are now gone. I have 10D plus 25Q equals 860. I now have these two equations to work with. I'm going to try this one to solve by elimination. So I'll write them over here again. D plus Q equals 50, and 10D plus 25Q equals 860. They're both in standard form, and the D's are lined up, the